So I guess I'll give you a geographic background
Yeah.
first. So we'll start at New York City, and then as we go north, things get less and less populated. There's still big cities here and there, but by and large, it's like U.S. Forest Service land, and it can get pretty sparse up
Okay.
there, especially in like upstate New York and Vermont. There's a big difference between East Coast and West Coast forests in the U.S. I live on the West Coast now, so now I can see the actual difference. And the thing is, out here, the forests are much older, they're darker, and they're deeper, but on the East Coast, they tend to have more history. But when I say history, I'm not really referring to like native history. I'm talking about like colonial settlers and things like that. So on the East Coast, we get many more stories of people, like eating their boots and stuff to survive and this and that. But you get a lot of interesting things when you run around out there. My stance is like, I don't believe in ghosts, but I've seen quite a few things that I can't justify in the realm of logic. So it's kind of a frustrating thing. And I still don't know if this particular night was a collection of coincidences that happened to make a suspicious circumstance.
Okay.
But it's weird for sure. All right, so to set the scene, I was an RA. Do you have RAs over there?
What's that?
It's a residential assistant. It's like a floor manager in a college. So you're also a college student, but you kind of enforce some of the college policies, but it's mostly like making sure everybody's safe.
Mm, I'm sure there's probably some equivalent. Yeah, I never actually lived on campus, so I'm not sure, but there probably is something like that. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So I was a sophomore in college, and I had 30 freshmen,
Mhm.
and my job was my official job was to make sure like they don't drink, they don't do drugs and all that stuff, but really I was handing out a ton of condoms and like making sure that they got to bed after drinking. My friend Parker was one of my residents, and he's a tall, skinny ginger, super duper pale, and he's really into video games. I made it my personal mission to try and make him do a few like goofy things. But my friend Emily had a minivan with the sliding doors, right? So yeah, so I go outside with Emily and our other friend Casey,
Mhm.
and Casey is she's much less of a skeptic than us,
Okay.
much more of a believer in otherworldly things.
Mhm.
Do you know what Reiki is?
Yeah.
And her mom's a Reiki master, so it's kind of something she was raised with. But yeah, so we have her with us, and we have this plan to go to this graveyard that I had heard about from somebody. I think I heard about it at like a rest stop or something. I was just like talking to somebody somewhere. I don't really remember, but anyway, so we're all waiting in this car, and we realize that Parker's like not gonna come. He doesn't want to hang out. But I also knew that he had finished his homework and everything, so he didn't have anything really to do. So I think I texted him like, "Hey, can you come look at Emily's minivan with us? Like, there's something wrong with it," because he's a genius. He's really good with cars. So he comes outside, and he's all kind of cold and reluctant. And then Casey and I jump out of the minivan and like throw the door open and grab him and throw him in the minivan. And then Emily starts driving. So we drive. Uh, I'm going to refrain from the naming the town or the name of this person to kind of protect it a little bit. But it's a pretty old cemetery, like back to 1700s.
Yeah.
Which I guess it's not that old for you, but that's pretty old for us. It's about as old as unless you go to a Puritan settlement.
Hmm.
So we go, and it's kind of a weird place. There's like a huge field on one side of the road, and then there's this really thick pine forest on the other side.
Okay.
And that's kind of normal for Vermont, but it still is kind of weird to have such a harsh barrier between forested land and like farms. So we pull over to the side of the road next to this graveyard, and we jump the fence to go in, and we're looking for a mound in the ground, essentially. And this mound is, it has a window on top of it, looking down into the grave, because there was this guy who was a doctor. He was nuts. He had, I think he had like 3 doctorates or something in the 1800s, like mid to late 1800s. Actually, he got his degree in 1855, I think. But he's kind of a globetrotter, went around. He was the U.S. consulate, served with the Russian army and stuff for a while. A real genius guy, but he had taphophobia, which is the fear of being buried alive.
Oh God. Oh, so that's why he had the glass in there.
Yeah, exactly. This was a time where that kind of fear was really rampant. There were, I mean, all across New England, there's graves that have like bells and stuff on them.
Oh yeah, I've heard of those. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's actually a few that have cages around them. In like, if you go to super old ones, because for some reason these people thought that they were burying vampires.
Oh, they could get
So
out.
they would put the coffin inside of a steel or metal cage. I guess it would be iron, and have a blacksmith shut it, basically.
Wow. I've never heard that before. That's new.
Yeah, it's kind of freaky to see. Yeah, so then there was the bells and a couple other measures to make sure that you weren't buried alive. A popular one, if you had enough money, was safety coffins, they were called. And it was essentially just like metal instead of a wooden coffin, and it had a plate of glass over your face. And if you had that, not only was that expensive, but you also had to be buried in a mausoleum, because if you're buried underground, nobody will be able to see if you're alive.
Yeah, fair enough.
So yeah, during this period, it was the security guard, the night watchman's duty to go and look at each and every one of these glass plates every couple hours and make sure that the person's not blinking, you know? So he actually died on Halloween in 1893, of course, right?
Okay.
What other day would he die on? Yeah, so he was super rich because he's been a globetrotter and he's very well endowed. So he had this crazy grave built for him. It's basically this giant cement cylinder, like a road pipe, basically, except those weren't invented yet. And then his coffin would go into it, and then there's a 6-foot shaft that goes vertically from his face up to the glass plate on top.
Okay.
So he, I guess, invented kind of a hybrid between the safety coffin and the other one. Yeah.
It's still a long way to look down, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Hard to actually see, because I'm guessing it's quite dark down there, right? Unless it's like fitted with lights, or is the night watchman meant to shine down the like?
Yeah, I guess he was meant to shine down. I'm not really sure. I went there during the day though, and I couldn't see anything down there. So that was part of my motivation for getting everybody to go at night.
Okay.
Which I'll get to in just a second. But yeah, so it's this cement cylinder, vertical tube, and then there's this big slab of stone that is rolled in front of the doorway, and then there's actually steps that go down, because his body's at 6 feet, but from what I understand, I read something in our library, I think, the coffin is actually at like eye level inside the chamber.
Oh, okay.
That way they didn't have to, I guess, if it wasn't, then somebody would have to crawl in and like drag it in, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's probably these weird logistics that we won't understand. But yeah, so it's two cylinders. Only one has a window, and the other one was for his wife.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, so he was buried in that, and he had a rope put in his hand, which went to a bell that was on the surface. So he had double protection. The bell, it has since been stolen, I suppose. It's not there anymore.
Oh, God. That would suck, wouldn't it? If you're actually alive and someone stole the bell.
You pull the rope and the whole rope comes down. Oh my God.
No!
So this is this grave, we found it, is just because it's above the ground, because all the soil around it had eroded, because it's just concrete underneath like a foot of dirt. but it's at kind of the front of the cemetery, and at the back of the cemetery is just like black. There's this huge iron fence that we hopped, and then about 60 feet after that is this mound. But then as the forest goes back and uphill, the graveyard goes as well. But toward the back, it's just kind of like a black line, and you can't really see anything. Yeah, except there's one light on inside a house or something up there. We can't really see what it is. But of course, we're like looking for adventure, so the grave wasn't enough naturally.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of saved the thrill of looking down into this glass window for later, because that you can't see it during the day because the contrast was so great. So yeah, everybody brought every single flashlight that we and it's like 14 inches by 14 inches, this glass plate. And I think it's like 2 inches thick or something. So we decided we're going to come back to that before we're ready to leave, because our mindset was kind of like, hey, if we see a dead body, we're going to leave like right away. And also the lights would, if there was a night watchman, the lights would attract. So we're walking, and the cemetery goes uphill, so we're going further back into it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's kind of like this drop off on one side of the hill. Like it looked sort of like a landfill in a weird way. Like it really wasn't natural.
Mm-hmm.
So we go onto the ground down there, and there's this iron door in the side of the hill.
Okay, it's weird.
So now we're like, okay, this has to be a mausoleum, right? Mm-hmm. What else would it be? Because it's the same situation where it's low enough that if we were to go in there, it was at eye level.
Oh, right. Okay. Mm-hmm.
For the graves. And the weirdest part of this was that it was the wall around it, like the barricading wall, was made of slate, as was typical for the region. People even had like their roof shingles were made of slate, as very common. But there were these two brackets bolted into the thing on either side of the door, and there's this super thick bar of metal in front of it, barricading the door shut.
Okay. So
from
stop
the outside,
getting like out versus stopping you guys getting in.
Yeah, and I think I know there's a photo of this somewhere. I'll try and track it down for you. But obviously, we take off the metal bar and we open the door, and it's super duper loud. It's just like, yeah. So that was freaky. And then inside it was and a oak door, like one that you would see inside of a house, like an interior door, flat on the ground.
Okay.
The hinges were attached to the door, but they had been ripped out of the wooden frame.
Oh, wow. So it was a door within a door, except the second door had just been like ripped off the hinges and was literally just on the ground.
Yeah, it looked like somebody kicked it in and it hit the ground. Kind of weird. And then all the walls were stone. Nothing creepy about them at all. And my idea behind this is I think it was probably just a tool storage shed for the maintenance crew or something like that. So we decide, hey, if we're going to keep screwing around here, we should probably figure out if there is a night watchman or not. And if there is one, it's really cold, so we'll be able to find footprints going into the cabin, like fresh ones, because it had snowed a while before. Like it hadn't snowed in a week or more. So we go up, and it's like a little wooden cabin, typical. And there's a light on inside and a desk. And we get closer, and we don't go right up next to it just in case. But I guess if you're a watchman at this grave site, you probably are pretty used to teenagers and stuff doing that.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. So anyway, from what we could tell, it was just like a nightlight, and there wasn't anybody in there, and there weren't any fresh footprints. Yeah, this was a time in the year when during the day it would be like above freezing slightly, and then at night everything would refreeze, so you would be able to tell how fresh the footprints were based on the crust of ice on top of it or the absence of it.
So
Yeah.
did you go into the cabin, or did you just kind of watch it from a little bit away?
I think we tried the door.
So do you think maybe the light was like automated, or could you?
No, I don't know. It provided discomfort when paired with the setting, for
Mm.
sure.
But then, even if it wasn't automated, like why? Because what would be the necessity to? He's changing the bulbs on that, like, just seems kind of random to have there in the middle of nowhere. But
Yeah, I don't know. There's I mean, it's a very old graveyard and it's kind of in the middle of nowhere.
yeah,
But the there's offices sometimes in graveyards in the US. So we keep just kind of walking around looking for stuff, and the graves here are really weird. They've got moss and stuff on them. It's like cobblestone looking essentially, very worn down from the rain. It's very interesting though. So we decide now that there's no night watchman. We'll go back and we'll shine our lights into that thing. So we go back, we follow our footprints back to this grave because it's the trees are blocking out the starlight. So all we really have is this like eerie bluish white snow to follow. And we get back to this mound and we put all the flashlights on and we turn them on. And I mean, we can see pretty much straight down. It's the walls on it, on all four sides of this like cube shaped thing, are covered in moss, like an inch and a half of moss. Because you can see in parts where the original shaft started, and then the moss just inched out and out and out, and the had water on it, like water droplets ready to fall. Yeah, on the bottom of it though, meaning that something wet had evaporated.
Oh God.
Up to the highest point in the grave. Yeah. And then a little bit further down, maybe 3 feet or so, part of the concrete was busted on the shaft, and you could see kind of like a miniature landslide of more moss and a little bit of concrete and dirt. And this is definitely just our overactive imaginations. I know there's a photo of this too, but it looked like a tooth. It really looked like a tooth in there. And then there was just a little section down further that was black that I'm sure you could see his bony face way down, but we didn't get to see a corpse that day. Kind of a strange thing. But what that means is that, I mean, obviously the concrete had ruptured in the shaft, but it means that it had also ruptured somewhere else and let outside air in to actually begin the decay process and stop whatever preservation they had done on him. And it's also freaky that, like, I mean, we think of graves as having not much light, just being totally dark. But his has light in it, and right next to him is his wife in total darkness.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, just a little uncanny.
And their bodies, like I'm guessing, but I'm speaking, completely decomposed and are probably with their bee bones. How long ago was it that he would have been?
It was Halloween 1890 something, 1893. So then we're satisfied after looking at this, and we go for like one last lap or something, I guess. And so Casey goes, "Stop, guys, stop!" And we're like in the middle of this path. She goes, "I see something right there," and it's I mean, you know how your visibility decreases when it gets dark, but it's just to the point where she's pointing is in the deeper part where if you look hard enough, you will see something.
Okay, yeah.
And so she's kind of freaked out, but also keep in mind that she has kind of a background in this stuff. So now we're thinking like either she wants to see something or she's been exposed to this stuff so much that she is like breaking the veil,
Yeah.
So then I think I said like, well, if there's something there, let's go closer. Something stupid like that, famous last words. So for some reason, I was able to convince them to walk closer. So we get maybe 10 feet, maybe 5 feet away from this thing. that she sees. Nobody else really sees anything, but as we stay there, it's like something starts to appear. I don't know if it was our imaginations or what. So definitely take it with a grain of salt. But it was this like a vapor cloud, like a haze almost, but not fog, like gasoline fumes. That's what it looked like. So then we decide that we should do something. So Casey reaches out her hand. She says like she feels like something way colder than everything else, like something was touching her. And we're all kind of in a line, like a single file line, like holding each other's shoulders and like looking behind Casey. After that, I go in the front and I take out my Zippo lighter and I light it, and there's no wind at all. The flames lit, and I think Casey said, like, if there's something there, can you blow out this flame? And immediately it went right out. Okay, maybe that was just the wind. But we all still see this like weird vapor cloud thing. So then I light it again and I go and I'm blowing on it. Everybody blows on it. Nobody can blow it out. And we hold it in front and Casey says it again and it goes out immediately. And then we say, like, for science, we have to do it a third time, of course, before we run out of here screaming. So then we put it out a third time and Casey asks again. And it kind of like flickers and then it gets really, really small to the point where it's just like blue, just a really tiny blue flame. And then it goes out. And then we all ran out of the cemetery.
There's no way she wasn't like messing around with the lighter or anything like that.
No, I was holding it.
Oh, it was you. Okay, so you can
Yeah. And then
oh, that's weird.
It could have been lost in the frantic escape, but I didn't have the lighter when I got back into the car.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe you dropped it or something.
Probably.
It's weird. I think it makes it even like more credible because she wasn't holding it. I thought when you were explaining that, like that she was holding the lighter, so I was like, oh, maybe she was messing with it. But if you guys were, you know, if other people were holding it and then you tried to blow it out and it didn't work, that is a.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was really strange.
What did you guys think of it afterwards? Like what it was, or what did you say about it?
Well, we were kind of all reeling. I remember we got in the car and we drove away pretty quickly and we all just kind of stared. And then I think Parker said, did that really just happen? Or something like that. And this is actually the first time I'm telling this story. Since then, it was like 3 years ago or something. I try and keep in mind that we are built to see threats, especially at night, and we're built to detect patterns and anomalies especially in nature, and especially when we have the fear chemicals running through us. So I don't think it's that strange for young adults to see something a little strange when they're already freaked out in firelight, you know?
Yeah, I guess it's just weird that it went out all of those times.
Yeah, so we would need either Casey to make something up or to actually see something. Then we would need all four of us to see the same thing, and then we would need 3 gusts of wind timed perfectly.
Yeah, exactly, for it to go out all those times. Yeah, even if like someone said maybe it was running out of like fuel or whatever, or gas, the lighter, then surely when you were trying to blow it out, when you had it, you know, it would have been doing the same thing then as well, like just kind of going out by itself, and it didn't, right? So
yeah,
that was cool.
Good, I'm glad.
Our story, yay.